Good afternoon again. I'm presenting today for Joe Nunez, who works with the University of California, and he is sorry he couldn't make the meeting, but he asked me to speak on two topics today for him. The first one is new nematicides for controlling the root knot nematode on carrots, specifically one called nemats. Nemats is a new nematicide. It's a contact nematicide. It's systemic. It may have a unique mode of action. It causes paralysis and it prevents eggs from hatching. His first trial was last year, and at this point he was working on different rates of nemats. He did see a significant decrease in the number of carrots affected with a nematode by vidate, but vidate, as you know, is an old material, and it is not registered for use on carrots in California. But the next trial, he looked at different rates of nemats and included timing, number of applications, and rates, with nemats, comparing it to vidate and then a couple of other materials, but concentrating on nemats. And the results of this trial, he saw significant reductions in a galling index, an index based on the number of galls on each carrot. So the higher the index, the more galls on the carrot root. And so nemats at 2 liters, about 2 liters per hectare pre-plant and 1 post-plant application significantly reduced galling and the number of carrots affected by the nematode. Now, he conducted a third trial and just finished this week. He emailed me, and he reduced the nematode something like from 80% to 10% with the nemats. So he was very excited about that. It's too late to include the data in this presentation, but he did call a field day, so he's invited growers to come see the results for themselves. Anyway, he's very excited about this new material, nemats, for nematode control. Okay, well, vidate nemats were effective, and nemats probably will have a label soon on carrots. Vidate is not registered. Vidate, as you may know, is highly toxic and probably won't be registered on carrots in California. And he's continuing to evaluate other nematicides, but he's very excited about nemats. The other topic he wanted me to talk about is flea beetle injury. Flea beetle is an established insect pest on tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplant in California, but until recently has not been identified on carrots. And so Joe has identified this kind of damage caused by these flea beetles. They're feeding tunnels. They are often in a row, so somewhat different than cavity spot, but you can mistake it for cavity spot, which is so common in California. The larva usually drops off into the soil when you harvest the root. So you generally don't get to see it, but here if you look closely you'll see the larva there tunneling in the epidermis of the carrot root. And they are hard to see, so there's one circled on that carrot. Does superficially look like cavity spot. So a diagnosis has to be carefully made. But the flea beetle damage is often in a row, longitudinal row along the carrot. The cavity spot is more random on the root. The flea beetle damage also has sharp margins along the tunnel and could be confused with carrot rust fly, I suppose. Okay, so Joe did a quick study, just getting started on this research, what flea beetles are involved, and then how can he monitor flea beetles? Does a threshold need to be established to help growers with insecticides if necessary? And then what kind of economic damage do these flea beetles cause? And it turns out that there are 2 flea beetles. And again, these are established pests in California, but for some reason, new on carrots. The pale striped flea beetle and this potato flea beetle. The adults feed on the foliage of tomato and potato eggplant, but he has not identified foliar damage on carrots from the adults. So he's tried to monitor populations of these flea beetles with yellow sticky traps, placed 1 and 2 meters above the carrot canopy in a row in a field. He put the traps on different sides of the fields and so forth. And then he also did weekly sweeps with a net, see how that would compare against the sticky traps. And then he collected carrot samples at the end of the season, try to correlate flea beetle populations with damage. So the results, pale striped flea beetles were best caught by a sweep net. You can see there about 1 meter above the canopy, while the potato flea beetle was best monitored by these sticky yellow traps placed just above the canopy. So here's some of the data. The top figure shows that more pale striped flea beetles were caught with the sweep net than the potato flea beetle. And as opposed to catching these insects with the sticky traps, few pale striped flea beetles were caught with the sticky traps, while relatively more potato flea beetles were caught with the sticky traps. Here's the data showing that placing the sticky traps, in this case 1 meter above. Okay. And this is data showing the total number of flea beetles and the damage to the carrots. But the relationship is not significant. So he does not have a threshold yet on populations of flea beetle and economic damage. So this is a trend line, but it's not significant at this point. And he and the entomologists feel they need a lot more data points to develop a threshold. So to answer the question, if the flea beetles cause economic damage in carrots, they collected culled carrots, damaged carrots, off of the harvesters, and they separated these culled carrots based on flea beetle damage and cavity spot damage. They didn't want to make the mistake, so they did that carefully. And their observations are that the flea beetle caused little damage in organic fields for some reason. He doesn't know why, but there was more activity in the conventional fields. And it's unexplained why this flea beetle has now moved into carrots. So generally, there was very little economic damage. The population was very sporadic. In 2 or 3 fields, there was significant damage, but in general, there was a small amount. So, in conclusion, these flea beetles are common in California, but only sporadic in California carrot fields. They are a new pest, considered a new pest, though. And sticky traps can be used to monitor the potato flea beetles, sweep nets for the pale striped flea beetles. And they're generally a problem in the fall planted carrots. We plant carrots year-round in California, and this is more of a problem in the fall planted carrots. There are a number of insecticides already registered for potatoes and tomatoes. Thank you for your attention.